Happy Wednesday night, everybody. Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside, and as always, thank you for being with us tonight. We appreciate it. Business out of the way, WDWNT TV. If you are not following it, you should. If you haven't liked this video, please do so, as it helps people to find us and also validates all of us here on this panel, including, oh my gosh, how did we get this? Nicholas Cicero, how are you?
I am fantastic, excited about Andor. Let's go.
Let's F go. And, Desi.
Hello there, you scruffy looking nerf herder.
Wow. I'm going to pretend that's directed to me. And of course, here for our fireside chat, it's Ron Deanna.
Happy Life Day, everyone.
I think there's some confusion there, but you know what? We'll get it figured out later. Obviously, as discussed, we're here to talk about Andor. And this is another Star Wars series, and it's very interesting that this is a prequel series to kind of a prequel. Like, really bold move on their part to go ahead and go deeper into this. I know a lot of people kind of Rogue One was very decisive, like divisive is the word I want to use. Some people loved it. Some people thought it was garbage. Nick, how did you feel about Rogue One? I think I know how you felt about it, but tell the people.
Rogue One gave me all the Star Wars feels. I really loved Rogue One a lot. I thought it was a good story to tell. I thought that was a good place for Disney to kind of dive in. Because it was a new story, but it was also incorporating a lot of things that we felt good about from the original. And I really liked a lot of the characters from it too. I would never have said Andor was one of my favorites out of there. That surprised me that they decided to go and make this series.
That is the interesting thing, isn't it? It's like, if you're going to go back and do a series, I was having this conversation with somebody. I'm like, I don't know how they choose these things. I think actually Patrick and I talked a little bit about it on the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special review that we did, is why Mantis and Drax? Like, I feel like while, like, the fan in me is going, oh, cool, we get to see more about, these two characters. The kind of like the skeptic in me is going, are they the only ones that were willing to do this much of an episode? Like, did they go and say, oh, we should do that Jen Erso? No, you're not available. Okay. Yeah, we'll get you. You can do this. We'll do it all around Cassian Andor. And it seemed very random to do that, unless, of course, Desi, are you telling me that Andor was your favorite character from Rogue One?
No, K2SO was. But to get K2SO's backstory, we have to get Andor's backstory. So I'm hoping for a lot more K2SO in the next season. I liked Rogue One. I'm not one of the people who thought that, oh my God, it's the greatest Star Wars ever. I'm not one of the people who hated it. I just thought it was good. I loved the end of it. I thought the ending was awesome, other than the kind of not good Carrie Fisher deepfake. But the whole like Darth Vader scene in that was great. I had kind of similar feelings for Andor as I had for WandaVision, where it was like, I didn't care about Wanda or Vision in any of the Marvel movies, and I didn't really care that much about Andor. But when I watched WandaVision, I loved it, and it put so much more into those characters. And then that's the same kind of way I feel right now about Andor. Is it was somebody that I didn't care that much about, but now it's like, oh my God, I love him. He's one of my favorite Star Wars characters.
Yeah, I know. No, I agree. I'm looking at the chat here. Thank you guys so much for being in chat tonight. And I'm just picking. Jungle Cruiser said Rogue One was a masterpiece. I wanted the characters to continue. Isn't that the thing, though? Like, you started in that movie to start to really kind of care about those characters, and they just did Scorched Earth, and you're like, huh? I guess there's not gonna be a sequel to this. And Disney goes, hold my beer. We're doing a prequel. How are you feeling, Santa?
Yeah, I think Rogue One is my third or fourth favorite Star Wars film. And in the movie, Andor was not one of my favorite characters. I think he was not supposed to be likable. And you did kind of get almost everybody else's backstory other than his. Like, You knew how Jin got there. You knew how the Guardians of the Wills got there. You knew Brody was just an Imperial. So you really had to see where the assassin, the spy, came from. And I think that's a good story to tell. It's because one of the things we're missing, and we've always been missing, even in the Mandalorian and Boba Fett series, is like how the on the ground people live through all this galactic turmoil. We see the generals, we see the Jedi, we see the kind of more of the leaders and things like that. We need this on the ground perspective, and it's not only just the on the ground of the rebels. We saw the like on the ground of the bureaucracy of the Empire, and I think that was a very interesting thing to see. It's that, yeah, Palpatine was evil, but like so were just a lot of these people who just were quote unquote doing their job, following orders. Really cemented that kind of Nazi simile metaphor to the whole thing.
I think you're just throwing out big words. Simile, metaphor. No, I'm just kidding. I agree with you. Like that, the sentiment I think that you were just sharing is the same thing I felt with Finn in the opening of Force Awakens. You're like, these are no longer just these faceless, like, mannequins that are falling down. Like, these are people that are underneath those costumes or the uniforms, and you start to see like what is their motivation. And that's kind of something that modern cinema is going for, right? Maleficent, like, she's not just a baddie, here's why she's a baddie. Or Thanos, maybe he had a point about like there's not enough resources in the universe, and that kind of thing. So it's like this now a very different take on a villain. I got to tell you, I was not super like hyped about this one. When Obi-Wan dropped, I was like, let me get every episode as it drops. I want to see it. Same thing with Mandalorian, Boba Fett. When those series dropped, I was just like, I have to see this immediately. With Andor, I was like, I'll get around to it. There's a lot of content. And again, it's not that I didn't like Rogue One. I agree with you, Nick. I think that was about the most Star Wars we had seen in a long time. So, I mean, did you take you a while, Nick, to warm up to this one, or were you like in from like the go?
Oh, it took a while. I am very glad they dropped it the way they did with the 3 episodes right at the beginning. Because if I just watched that very into it, having all 3 episodes, it got me into the storyline. I was like, okay, now I understand where this is going. The first episode did nothing for me. The 3 episodes did everything for me, and I was like dialed in.
I felt the exact same way.
Yeah.
It was like, at first I was like, that's weird. Why are they dropping 3 episodes at once? Like, I've seen them drop 2 at once, but I thought 3 seemed like a weird number. But I got it after I saw the first 3. Because if I saw the first one, I probably would have no interest or would put the second episode on the back burner. And then after seeing the second one, I might have fallen out of interest completely. But the fact that they dropped all 3 at once, I sat there and I watched all 3 in one sitting, and I got it. Because it was the slow burn.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you though. Like the first episode, I was like, I'm not really sure. And part of it is like it was getting ramped up, and by the time we hit 3, I was like, okay, now I'm in. Third one was the charm for me. Like, and I think it sounds like you guys were on the same page. What do you think, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, the first 2 episodes were just pure tension building, and I don't think it would have grabbed the audience if they were released just one at a time. And it was kind of strange. I know they released some of these to like ABC or Lifetime or something like that, but it was like the first 2, wasn't it? I'm not sure they did all 3, which, I mean, that is a complete tease, and I'm not sure how effective that's going to be to get subscribers. Like, I know they do a lot of this first 2 or first 3, and this might be the first one we got 3 out of any of the kind of genre shows. I mean, it's been longer than almost anything else we've had of any of these type of shows. So that was part of it. I mean, it could be also just scheduling and how they get things through. But like, just contrast that with Willow out right now. Like, This show was a really slow burn. Willow kind of jumps right in, and it would have I think Willow, getting off topic, but Willow could have used a little more world building in those first few episodes because we never got that in that movie, and then it jumps right into the action again. While this is a world we're familiar with, this teaches us the parts of it we're not familiar with in those first 3 episodes. And I think that really helped reset the tone that we're not following the same kind of characters again.
Yeah, I think this is the first one, like you said, that's been 3 episodes, and I feel like they must have done some kind of focus group to go, hey, you know what? How many did it take you to get into it? 3. Great. Let's do it. Let's put out 3 and we'll see from here. One of the things that bothered me about the first episode, and you mentioned we're on world building, and it kind of, that was necessary. And I think, Nick, you said the same thing. That's like they really took their time in the beginning to get you into it, and they're all over the place. It was like, he's running into people who he owes money to, and you're like, I don't know who this person is. I don't know why he has beef with him, and they don't explain it. And there's like this next guy, and I don't know why he has beef with him. And then the wall with the gloves, and I'm like, what are you trying to, like all of it? I'm just like trying to wrap my head around, like, what in the heck is going on? And then on top of that, they throw in the Boba Fett back to tank flashbacks, and I'm just like, well, we're bordering on an episode of Lost here, Nick. I mean, or were you just like, no, this is exactly how I wanted this to play out?
No, not at all. It did not play out the way I didn't know what to expect, so I can't even say that. But it was slow. But you know what saved it, and it was the characters. I was very interested in characters, not Andor. Like honestly, the reason I is not because of Andor, is because of all the other characters. So I was very interested in what all the other characters were doing, and I'm very interested in exploring what kind of Ron talked about is that and Sith. What are all these like Death Star people doing? What are all these like generals and all these other people doing and thinking about, and what's their motivation? And we got a lot of that, and that I absolutely ate it up, loved it.
I liked how it wasn't all necessarily just black and white, because you're watching Dedra and you know that she's on the side of the Empire. But on the other hand, you're rooting for her, like, yeah, girl power, work your way up through the ranks. Wait a minute, no, you're evil. And then on the other hand, Luthen, yeah, rebel, he's one of the good guys, but then he does all these like crazy, terrible, evil things too. So I liked how they made everybody more complex. It's not strictly, this is light side, this is dark side, these people are good, these people are evil. I kind of liked being able to see a bit of both.
The gray side of the Force.
Can we start with Cyril, and you guys explain to me what he's all about? Because
starting with, I mean, I think they tell you what he's all about when they started off, and they say, and he's like, they do something different with your uniform, and he's like, yeah, I dressed the piping and I had it tailored, and you're like, oh no, I will not like this man at all. What are your thoughts on him, Nick? Apparently you're not a huge Cyril fan. What the heck?
Well, I mean, we know he likes cereal. We know he has kind of a controlling mom. We know he falls in love with powerful women. I don't know what else to think about him. I don't really know where it's going, like what he wants to do in life, like what his thing was. We spent a lot of time with a character that I don't feel moved my thoughts about the Empire or anything, and I'm still a little bit. I mean, I'm pretty clear. I mean, he was a very single-minded individual, but he was weird. It was weird spending so much intimate time with that character.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if he was supposed to be the true believer in the Empire, or he was just a guy who wanted to do his job and then got like one track on this thing that ruined his career path. It really wasn't very clear on what his original motivations were, like with the piping and all that. Like, except you could tell he was the guy that like the kids who grew up to be stormtroopers probably flushed his head down the refresher a couple times. Like he seemed that kind of guy.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, there was a storyline with the mayor. This is totally not what we're talking about tonight, but I want to throw this out as a comparison. Is if you watched Hocus Pocus 2, which I think we all did. I can't speak for Nick, but I'm pretty sure everybody else did. In Hocus Pocus 2, the mayor, like, it's like what the mayor and his freaking apples, like that whole story meant nothing. And they went back to it time and time again. And I'm just looking around going, when we talked about it, I was like, did I miss some pivotal thing that was supposed to do? Or maybe did they cut that? I mean, the same thing with Cyril. It's like I think what his purpose was to be so basically driven for success that he drove the Empire to try to find, Andor, which then caused the whole thing for Andor to flee and all that kind of stuff. So I think that the first two episodes seem to be all about how do we get Andor off-world. Let me introduce you to him, and how do we get him off-world so now we can have new adventures. But speaking of that, it was kind of crazy to me. This thing went everywhere. I mean, like when I watched, I'm thinking another like Disney Plus series, specifically like Obi-Wan. It kind of is episodic. It's like, it goes from, he's on Tatooine or he's, doing a little side mission. This one goes crazy when you go from, introducing him, looking for his sister, to him in this like, galactic prison camp with sizzle floors with, Andy Serkis. It's like, how did we even get here? I mean, it just moves so fast. And I wonder, Desi, do you think that that's just because they're trying to push so much story into these two seasons that lead up to Rogue One? Or do you, didn't it seem to move like all over the place?
It did and it didn't. So it didn't, in that it didn't seem to move all over the place for like 3 to 4 episodes at a time.
Right.
So you were really focused, and then all of a sudden you jumped to something completely different with almost no real transition between them. But I still loved every single one of the arcs, and I think the Andy Serkis one was probably my favorite one, partially because it started out with him getting arrested by the K2SO type droid. So.
Okay. Speaking of which,
Yeah,
Nick, I'm sorry, Ron. You wanted to talk about that,
right?
Yeah, I was just say it was really 3 distinct movies, like with each of those, and it was like the origin movie, a heist movie, and then a prison break, and then something that tied everything back in again at the end. And I think it almost reminds me more of like a good comic book arc over a year than anything I've really seen on TV that kind of does those things more than what you see in TV. Because even like shows like Lost or something weave everything through as many episodes as possible and then wrap everything up. This really compartmentalized a couple different longer stories and then somehow tied them together.
You know what when you say it like that, you know what it reminds me of, and I don't know if you guys ever saw this, was the Fox TV show with Kiefer Sutherland, 24. That one kind of arced in the same way. Kim did something stupid to make Jack have to go and save her, and then you get to the end of that, and then she did something else stupid, which now we've gone on to a new thing. Like 3 episodes in, the bomb's defused, and then it's on to the next thing. Obviously, no one here saw 24, so I'm going to shut up about that. Nick, what are your thoughts?
I tried so many times.
No, 24 was amazing. No, yes, I agree with that. You know, what I want to say, though, is that that when the K2 droid showed up on that beach planet, which was gorgeous, love it, love all the settings, that was that moment. Like, I've had a few in Mandalorian, couple in Boba Fett, couple in Obi-Wan. That was one of the moments in Andor where, as a Star Wars fan, it was like, get up and cheer. Like, oh, that's K2. What's going to happen here? That's amazing. This is fantastic. This is so, because the big complaint, let's say it. I mean, a lot of people called this show not Star Wars enough, right? It wasn't Star Wars. I disagree with that, because the whole premise was the whole idea of going a little bit deeper and more, into what the oppression of the Empire. There he is. Oh, yes. Uh, and, and it's very Star Wars, and to be able to, just because we've peeled away from showing Jedis and Sith doesn't mean it's not Star Wars. And just because we're not showing TIE fighters in every scene doesn't mean it's not Star Wars. It was still very much grounded in our Star Wars universe. But the interesting thing about this show is that I think, unlike a Mandalorian or an Obi-Wan, I think anybody can pick this show up and watch it if you just want a fun drama with a prison break and with and character arcs, strong character arcs. You got all that in this show, whether you were a Star Wars fan or not.
I think this might be a polarizing comment for some people, what I'm going to compare it to, because it's one of the more polarizing movies, is I say a lot, The Last Jedi might be the best movie of the Star Wars movies, but it's not the best Star Wars movie. Like, it's a distinctly well-done movie that is something its own thing that didn't fit into the Star Wars mold, and that's why a lot of people didn't like it. I absolutely loved it. But I mean, I had 9 p.m. tickets and I had midnight tickets. I actually turned in my midnight ticket when I walked out because I'm like, I can't see that again without digesting it. I had to go back the next night instead, just because like it felt so different. And this did too. And I think this is the first time we've had any Star Wars content that hasn't shown a Force user. And I was actually very happy about that. Like, Rogue One, I wasn't expecting it, but then we got the Guardians of the Whills who were somewhat Force users, and obviously Vader. And then Solo, like, was going through fine, and then all of a sudden it's like, here's Darth Maul for no reason. So, like, they just could not escape having to tie the Jedi and the Sith into anything. And then this doesn't. And I think that's a really strong statement about what this franchise can do in the future. That, like, what was it? Was it a series or the game 1313, Nick? You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
That, like, was supposed to just be all the underworld, no Empire, no Jedi, anything like that. And I think this is leading to us to get more of that kind of content, which some of the, secondary canon used to have. Like, I mean, they were even barely secondary canon days, but like the old Han Solo Adventures novels, things like that. This really felt more in that kind of vein than anything we've ever had.
Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, that was a game that was deep in the works when the Disney acquisition happened and then got cut. I mean, might have been because EA can't make a good Star Wars game, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm still waiting on one that was a game that they showed for Star Wars that was a mobile game that they showed off at Star Wars Celebration. That's seems like it's never going to come out. What is it about Star Wars and not being able to make a good video game except for the Star Wars Survivor, right? Anyway,
Fallen Jedi is really good.
But isn't Survivor the sequel to
the sequel that's coming out?
Yeah, that's that whole series. That whole series.
Like,
all right.
There were good games, but they were few and far between.
Back to this thing, Desi. Which is your favorite droid, K2SO or B2?
I'm sorry, still K2SO. But B2 was super adorable. Kind of reminded me if maybe Wally could talk. Had kind of that look and feel about him. But getting back to Cyril, I just wanted to mention, I can't believe that Cyril's cereal is not available on the shelves or at the parks or anywhere. I would eat Cyril's cereal with some blue milk. Also, his mom cracked me up. I know that not everybody liked Cyril as a character, but I thought he was great because I just liked seeing like this crazy, drank all the Kool-Aid, 100% for the Empire kind of guy just so that we see things from another perspective. Because we've seen everything from the rebellion's point of view. I like being able to see things from that point of view and kind of understand why, or the thought process between somebody who might support the Empire.
The mother was great. As someone who has one, I'm very happy to see that even a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, Jewish mothers still existed.
Hey, so I need to show you something I found online. Speaking of the cereal, right? Like Rice Krispie treats, but with cereal.
I would make
Yes.
those. I want that right now.
That's
That looks
right.
delicious.
Like get them into Galaxy's Edge ASAP, right? That looks
Please.
amazing. Yeah, yeah. That situation with his mother again, I think just says kind of everything. You know, about him and who he is, and like when he comes home, she's like, you know, well, you screwed up. Welcome home. But that's okay. Mama's gonna fix it. I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen next. But I did love the cameo of Blue Milk. I did think that that was, you know, again, those little pitches, Nick, that remind you that it is a Star Wars movie without shoving it down your throat with 900 Jedi and a bunch of lightsabers.
Yeah, there was a lot of those little things. I just think, looking at some of the technology that they were using, whenever they were in the, I forget what they called, but the Empire's building there where they were always meeting. What was that? They had
The
the initials. I
ISB?
forget what they were. Yeah, yeah. So whenever they were in that building, that was very Star Wars to me. So I really appreciated that. Obviously, I mean, the other part of the series that made me like jump out of my seat and was getting away from those other ships, and he did the whole thing where he had lightsabers come out of his Star
Oh
Cruiser, and he
yeah.
spun around and chopped up all the ships. I mean, I was like, I was dying. That was fighters and all that. So that was a scene where I was like, oh my goodness, that's like I was screaming. I was screaming. Like I jumped up literally screaming. That was so cool.
Let's talk about the characters slash actors for a second. Like Stellan Skarsgård was amazing in this thing, and yet at the same
Yes.
time, I was like,
Yeah.
there aren't enough people in Hollywood that you have to reuse the people all the way through Star Wars and Marvel. Like, can't we get somebody new? Like, I mean, I don't know, because I feel like Star Wars folks are going to go see Marvel stuff, etc. Like, I feel like sometimes you need new people, except he just killed it. He had this dual personality that I've yet to see from him anywhere before. And so I thought, you know, Desi, you said yes. I mean, to me, he kind of stole the show, except, you know, the prison scenes.
Yes. I loved his monologue at the end talking about what he's given up for the rebellion. I loved being able to see, kind of the grittier side of the rebellion. And you see a little bit, you know, we've heard of Saw Gerrera being like this extremist. And Saw Gerrera did not seem extreme compared to Luthen, in my opinion, because Luthen was willing to give up all of these people um, just to be able to keep furthering the cause. Whereas Saw Gerrera was like, "Oh my gosh, are you serious? You're really going to do that? You would sacrifice him?" Um, so maybe it's even starting to plant the seeds of Saw becoming more, um, you know,
Well, I
crazy.
like the line where he says something along the lines of, I have to burn my life for a world that I won't ever see." And I'm
Yep.
like, wow, yeah, that's the mic drop moment. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's also willing to burn other people's lives too. But I
Right.
mean,
No loose
he,
ends.
he has some. It makes me believe he also has some kind of other knowledge or stakes in the game, and I don't know what that is yet. And I think it'll be. It doesn't have to, but it almost feels like he kind of knows that this might be worse than just an oppressive regime. That this may be that like kind of next level thing. He might have some kind of knowledge. Not necessarily. I'm not even saying he knows the Emperor is a Sith Lord, but I feel like he might know something a little bit more than your average rebel, if we're calling them rebels yet here. No. And it's going to be interesting to explore. I'm also wondering if he has some kind of stakes in the game, like somebody somebody that he knows was turned, maybe a loved one or something like that, or killed or something like that. And like I said, it doesn't have. I'm so cool with that character. I mean, he was probably the best character, other than. I mean, I still think you had strong performances by Mon Mothma. That was an amazing character, and so was what's his face? Can't think of his name. The guy from the prison, a famous actor.
Andy
Andy
Serkis.
Serkis.
Andy Serkis. Thank you. Having that level of acting brought to the Star Wars game. I mean, this was some of the best overall acting we have ever seen. Can we have a consensus maybe on that? That this was the best acting in any Star Wars series or movie, possibly?
I think so.
I would say so, except for with one exception. The only time it broke with me that like this isn't good acting was Mon Mothma's daughter. Like, I mean, not that she had much, but I'm just saying, I was just like, this is the best you could do. But you're right. No, I mean, I feel like everybody else.
Seems like a 14-year-old to me.
Ron, what do you think?
Kind of. That's what I'm thinking too.
What? That's what a 14-year-old is like?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I don't know if it was bad acting as much as it was just a 14-year-old that didn't really care.
Well, just as good as the little girl was in Kenobi that played the Princess Leia character,
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about that when we did that review. She was just so good. Like, I feel like she set the bar high enough that you could have found someone that could have done that job better. I don't think it was just that she was a 14-year-old, but I agree with you that the level of acting in this, because, again, some of the Jake Lloyd lines back in the day, I don't know. It's just, they hurt when I go back. You must be an angel. Oh, good Lord. Anyway.
So I have a Luthen thing while we're still on Luthen. His store was amazing. Now we have Doc Andor's at Edge, which is fantastic. We could go shopping there and find some cool stuff. But I mean, to go shopping in Luthen's store, I don't know if there's anything anybody saw that they might want to buy in there. I want a Gungan shield. He had a Gungan shield in there. I would buy that in a second. That was so cool.
He had one of Padme's
I saw the Gungan
headdresses.
shield. Yeah, and I saw somebody pointed that out. I didn't see that one. The shield was the one that caught my eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I agree.
Didn't he have some Indiana Jones stuff in there, like other Lucasfilm stuff? I know there was some lists out there about all the stuff, all the Easter eggs in there. There's holocrons and things like that, of course.
Raiders idol in a lot of stuff. So that was probably in there somewhere.
I think it was next to
but
the holocron.
You said you think Luthen has some sort of background. Like, do you think he's like a Jedi in hiding or anything like that? Or do you think it's something a little more subtle?
I think it's probably more subtle than that. So there's been a lot of discussion over that stick that he holds. Is that a lightsaber? I really don't think that's a lightsaber. I don't know. It's possible. If anybody has a lightsaber, it might be this dude.
He does have a Kyber crystal.
Yeah, he has the Kyber crystal,
and he has what looks like lightsabers coming out of his ship. Red lightsabers, I might add.
I don't think he's force sensitive, but there might be some kind of connection to Jedi there. And look, I wouldn't be mad if they did it right, if they introduced Force and Jedi, but they can do it very Rogue One-ish, right? So this could lead into that, and I'm going to forget the name. The Temple Bays was part of, and Cherub, they were part of the Drew,
Temple of the
right?
Wills.
I always forget his name, but they were part of that temple, right? Like that could be introduced in some way, and Luthen could have some connection to that. Yeah, that's the stick. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a lightsaber? Doesn't look like a lightsaber
Well,
we've seen before, but who knows?
but again, to Ron's point, I was going to bring it up earlier when you were like saying there are no lightsabers. I was going to say, does that kyber crystal count? So yeah, that stuff at least exists in this world. Ron, what were you going to say?
I completely forgot what I was going up to say. So
Perfect. Awesome. All right, then let's move on a little bit. So I did find it interesting. Let me back up a second to the whole like flashback thing because I kind of touched on that a little bit earlier. Like that was a little distracting for me in Boba Fett when they were like back to the Bacta tank for a flashback to the Sand People. I mean, it was just in this one, they made it seem like a dream for him at first. And then they didn't put us in that. They just would send us back there time and time again. And I think that it was, to me, a little frustrating until it came to that crescendo where we saw how similar it was to the Luthen taking him off world and, you know, him being saved by his mother, you know, being taken off world at the same time. Like that, like, okay, that gave me the feels, but you had to get, it was a long way to get there because all those scenes, none of them had subtitles to tell you what they were telling, like saying to each other. And it's just, you know, they're speaking their own language, and not that you necessarily needed it. You got it from context clues, but it was just a little bit, I don't know. It was a little bit strange. I felt like it slowed it down for me and didn't necessarily, I felt like it didn't necessarily need all that stuff. Desi, disagree with me.
I thought it was weird that they spent all of this time building his backstory and a sister, and he's searching for his sister. And then there's like a throwaway line where it's like, your sister's dead, just forget about it. And then it's like, okay, that's it. We're just going to forget about the sister and move on. I felt like, why did we spend all that time building it up if we're just going to forget about it?
It's the mayor and the apples all over again. I'm telling you. It's the mayor and the apples. The other thing that kind of drove me a little bit nuts that I was just like, what are we even doing here? Was and I'm trying to get a good picture of it to kind of bring up, but the clock guy, like
I love him.
This dude.
Yes, I don't think we
I feel like they
need
went
to
to a
know
lot of
anything
trouble
more
for this
about
guy.
him.
Oh, we don't?
Love him. I need an action figure of that guy. Yeah.
Oh, there'll be one.
I want that guy telling the time at Galaxy's Edge now. I just want him to be hiding up in one of the spires telling us what time it is every hour.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, you know, it was just so funny that guy. I found a blog that was entitled "I Love You Andor Bell Guy."
Yeah.
So
that's what I've been doing all week, writing that blog.
What have you? You know what? It was riveting. Thank you for writing it. I appreciate you. I'll definitely leave some positive feedback for you. I mean, when this guy goes to work, this guy goes to work. He puts on his gloves. He puts on his his headphones. It's the latest in Beats technology that he's using. And
are they
it's
selling the
fantastic.
gloves yet at Galaxy's Edge? Do they have a wall of gloves?
They need a wall of gloves, don't they? They need a wall of gloves. That was so like dramatic. The wall of gloves. What were you gonna say?
I need Mon Mothma's entire closet. If they were to sell that for people on the Star Cruiser, I might book a Star Cruiser trip just so that I could buy one of Mon Mothma's dresses.
I mean, if you can get in. Whew.
Yeah. By the way, when I die, can you guys cremate me and put my ashes in a brick and put me in Galaxy's Edge?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No
Good.
problem.
Okay.
That's going to happen.
Do you have any time frame on when that's going to happen, or you're just putting that out there?
Just saying that's my request, please.
Yeah. Archfox says clearly a stomp percussionist. Could have been. Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask about technology? I know this is supposed to be a galaxy a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but sometimes they have crappy technology. Like when they were trying to find, like Cyril was trying to find where the ship left, and he's going through footage, and it's just that weird old school Princess Leia behind the, map Star Wars thing of like a bad game of Battleship that they're working on, and like it just seems ridiculously low tech bad. Then, hey, we've got an image coming of the guy we think did it, and this huge, nice, fantastic turning hologram of Andor comes up with this like this whole thing. I'm like, pick a lane. Like either you have that technology and you use it for everything, or you don't. Like I get that it's far away. And again, I mean, like Ron, hopefully you've studied enough of this that you're going to argue back on me with this, but I feel like it's inconsistent.
It is inconsistent. If I remember anything, it's certain pieces of the technology are just very expensive, and the Imperials have certain things that nobody else has, and other things are like the individual planets stick to their individual cultures, and there have always been inconsistent with computers being not as good as you would think they are, but then the droids are completely sentient. Maybe too much so. Maybe they can't figure out how to not make a protocol droid annoying because they're not so good with computers. Who knows? I mean, they just are. It's always been kind of all over the place. Like, who would program a droid to have 3PO's personality of all things? And, like, you don't fix that.
Yeah.
While we're talking about technology, I think this was the first time we've seen the Hollow News in live action. And it was kind of jarring for me. It's like, you know, there's the Star Wars universe and then there's the real universe. And sometimes when you see things that are too close to the real universe, it takes you out of it. When it looked like he was just watching, when Cyril was just like watching TV, that seemed weird to me. And then when his friend called in on what looked like Skype, I thought that was weird. Like, when do they decide that somebody's going to call you via Skype versus somebody's going to call you via a hologram?
So
I
I
think
think
it's like technology is expensive.
Go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say, I think we're getting enough Star Wars content now. I think we're getting close to the time when we're going to be able to watch a Star Wars show and they're watching other Star Wars, like they're watching not other Star Wars shows, but other shows like produced. So maybe we're watching an Andor and they're watching some kind of sitcom that was produced in their universe and they're watching it on their TV. Like, I think
They're watching B. Arthur singing.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm cool with that. I've heard that complaint too, where people don't like seeing media portrayed in sci-fi universes. But I mean, come on, like they're entertaining themselves somehow. They're watching content. They have to be, and so I'm fine introducing it. And there's news there, and you said live action. There was a lot of it, I think, in Clone Wars and Rebels. But you're right. I think this is the first time we're really seeing it in live action. I don't mind it. It's real, and that's how news gets around, and that's how you can tell stories. I enjoy it.
In The
Heck,
Mandalorian,
Obi-Wan,
when you
was it there something in Obi-Wan where he was watching a newscast? Wasn't there something?
I don't
thought he
remember him
overheard
watching a
something.
newscast, but in The Mandalorian, there was
No.
like a hologram of the Death Star exploding, and it was like a hologram
Right.
that was like the Star Wars crawl, but in Arabic.
Yep.
But this was the first like legit Hollow News I think I've seen in live action.
Well, when speaking of Hollow News, let's talk about this thing.
Oh, so good.
What are you going to say about it, Nick?
Well, I mean, first of all, that speech kind of rivaled Luthen's in a way. I think Luthen's was a little bit more powerful, but this one was more emotional, I think. And this was a great rallying point. I mean, everything built up to this crescendo, and it was fantastic. And this is also where I think the little droid kind of turned like, this is where he really portrayed his Wally qualities. I think it was absolutely adorable. No, that was a great way of really building up the tension and then exploding the powder keg. Like this was the the start of the American Revolution type thing. You could picture this is the version of the colonials out in the streets in Massachusetts, and like this is that boiling up of like kind of a soft protest at first, and then you have this strong person that kind of stands up and just ignites the flame because they're so on the edge of boiling over. And it was a great writing, great acting, and the story was told perfectly.
And I like that you could kind of see the Imperials like were waiting when to shut it down because they know if they shut it down at the wrong moment, it's going to ignite anyway. And you saw them just wait till it was too late and it was just over. Like
Yeah.
there was no turning back at a certain point.
But you were talking about like as a speech, like everybody kind of got a rousing speech. Like Kino from like the prison, he gave his rousing speech,
Yeah.
and then you had her rousing speech, and like there were a lot of rousing speeches.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. That's why. But did Andor have one? No. Andor was just the conduit between everything, right? He was the common or the kind of central point of the storytelling, but he wasn't by any means the most pivotal character. He just finds himself in this, and he's moving things along. And history, like history, will probably never tell the story of Andor, right? Like in this whole entire thing. Obviously Luke is the one who gets the glory and the fame, right? But I have a feeling Mon Mothma is going to get a little bit of the story. I don't know where Luthen plays in this. Like I don't know how far his tales will travel. Obviously, they weren't told in the stories we've heard in Star Wars. This is the first we're hearing of him. But I don't know if that's like one of those names that will go down in history. Saw Gerrera maybe kind of was. You have these names that go down. I don't think Andor is a name that anybody will ever talk about or remember or know. Or he's just one of those characters that we're watching because it helps us tell the story of what goes on during this time period.
Who lives, who dies, who tells your story? Yeah, no, I get it, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think actually Lin-Manuel Miranda is working on an Andor musical right now. So Rob Collier said, you're like Nick's like don't make fun. I would totally go see that. Rob Collier said in chat, like, what about the Polaroid camera? And I'm glad that he brought that up because like didn't we all look at this and go, well, that's exactly what that is. This old school tech. And I mean, and that he made a big speech about it being sort of old school tech, and how it's better than the new things because it's more, it's gonna work through, other situations. And we all have that, like, oh, my internet's down, I can't do streaming. Well, would have been nice to still have cable, or hey, all the cell phone networks are down. Remember landlines? Like, sometimes old tech is really more reliable than new tech, but it darned if it didn't look just like a modified Polaroid camera. So I don't know.
And
I mean, that's
he had a whole
with
manifesto.
Star Wars. Yeah.
Wait, Nick, what did you say?
The chick razor that Qui-Gon used. So yeah.
Oh yeah, the Venus.
That he
they
chopped
use the
into.
Venus razor as the.
Yeah, I'm looking like at these other Polaroid cameras and going, okay, yeah, that's pretty much exactly it. Now I can navigate my way through a star system, no problem at all. Just a few modifications, and we'll get there.
Christmas
So
1986.
So we're kind of running out of time here, so I want to kind of get a little bit more specific about, what do we think happens next? Because, we've got now season 1. We know we're only getting a season 2, and that's going to butt right up against Rogue One. So are we going to just start to, I mean, when we are in Rogue One, we pick up on Andor, and we're going through Jen Erso's story, and we just happen to get Andor into her story. So I don't feel like there's a lot of these other people from Rogue One, other than the ones we've seen here, that we're going to pick up along the way. I don't know. But so let me ask you, Ron, where do you think we're going next?
I think we're going to see him kind of as that assassin kind of character. And I think we're going to see, you know, what was the Imperial, the officer's name? Deirdre?
Yeah.
I think we're going to see him having to kill Cyril and Deidre at some point. I think as far as other characters we're going to see him either with K2SO or get K2SO. I think we're going to already have him by the end, especially if it's going to be very close to Rogue One. But I think we have to see Bail Organa again, because he and Mon Mothma and I think Akbar were like the three real leaders in the early days. Supposedly in the old canon it could be different, but definitely Bail and Mon Mothma were kind of the real rebellion founders. So I think we have to see them kind of coming to terms with forming the alliance, which I think is what we had the loose alliance at Rogue One, and like the Death Star kind of cemented them all together at the end. I think we're going to see that kind of forming.
Yeah. Nick, what do you think? What's next?
Well, I want to point this out first in case anybody hasn't seen this. So Tony Gilroy, the writer,
Yeah.
on
I was actually
Andor,
looking through his stuff, wrote all the Bourne stuff, and also The Cutting Edge, which was some weird, like, skating
Ice
movie.
skating.
Like,
Yeah.
right. Like, come on. Weird criteria, but where are you going with that?
He said for season 2, we're going to skip a whole year, come back a year later. We'll do 3 episodes, jump a year, do another 3 episodes, jump a year, and then we'll come back to the final 4 episodes, and those will lead up to the last 3 days before Rogue One started. So that's the plan for season 2. So we're going to do a lot of time jumping. What I want to see, there's not a lot about what they're doing, though, character-wise.
Right.
So what I want to see, I definitely want to see Mon Mothma's progression. Like, I want to see how she obviously breaks away from the Senate, goes out, becomes a very top-level rebel. I want to see how that plays out with her daughter, who seemed very into that arrangement, so that's working for them. So there's definitely going to be some family friction. What happens with her daughter? Like, is there some kind of play there? Does she, I don't know. Like, what happens there? I want to see how far Luthen goes. I feel like Luthen has to die before we get to Rogue One, right? I mean, realistically, I don't see how he survives up until Rogue One. So I'm assuming, who knows? I'm guessing he makes some kind of sacrifice, some kind of grand, big sacrifice. I would need that from him, because I think that's where they have to be leading up to with a character like that.
Andor has to kill him.
Andor.
That's what I was thinking too.
Well, maybe. And I think you're right. Andor just has to be that middle road assassin rebel character that leads up. I don't think there's any grand arc for him. We know where he ends up. We know where he is now. I don't think there's any weird changes. I think he's going to be that main story character throughout the rest of season 2. But yeah, the big things are with Mon Mothma and Luthen in my mind. Where are we going to see them go and lead? And then hopefully Saw comes into it more. And I really do hope we see Bail. Bail's becoming like this character that, hey, we have a Star Wars film. Throw Bail in there. I love more Bail Organa. I love that he's not going away, because I absolutely adore him. So that I always love that.
Is he secretly the linchpin that holds this universe together?
He is. He's in everything.
Really
It's like,
was.
let's have a cameo by Bale.
Yeah. All right, Desi, your thoughts on the future? What's next?
I'm really interested in Mon Mothma's husband. Is he just that clueless? Is he
Oh,
evil? Is he actually secretly a rebel and they're both trying to hide it from each other because they don't know how the other one
whoa!
stands? Um, I think that would be really interesting.
I
Um,
never thought about that.
the whole Dedra
Twist.
and Cyril thing, I think it would be interesting to see how that progresses. Um, Maybe one of them
First Star Wars sex
dies.
scene.
I think that already happened with Bix and Tim, right?
Oh, I guess it did.
Um, and so kind of interested to see if maybe one of them will wind up turning to the rebellion. And that's the reason we've been following them.
Can I just
And
tell you,
then,
Tim, worst character. Hated him. Not actor, just hated Tim. They were like, bam! And I was like, sorry.
one last crazy conspiracy theory. I want to see Keanu Loy has been captured and they are doing all kinds of crazy testing on him and doing stuff with his DNA because they see that he's a natural born leader and maybe Palpatine's not a natural leader, so they're going to splice some of Palpatine's DNA and send up some of Keanu Loy's DNA and they're going to make Snoke. That's my crazy conspiracy
that
theory.
is a deep, crazy conspiracy. Yeah. Can I just tell you, like, my favorite line from this? And again, we talked about there were a lot of speeches that were made. Arvel, the one that Andor just like, hey, let's split the money. Nope. Had this line where he said, "The axe forgets." And the
But
tree remembers. I was like, wow, like that's finally I know what my tattoo is gonna say. That's gonna be great. I thought that was a really great line. Sorry, that was just a really neat one, and it's so funny that again, just like Rogue One, this is a very scorched earth series. Hey, let me introduce you to 6 people. Don't get too used to them though. Like, I mean, just flowing through the folks, which again gives Hollywood a lot of reasons to put people in. But when you go and you look at like IMDb, you can see like some people that seemed like they were major characters for one of the arcs. All of a sudden, they're just in a 12 episode series. They were only in for like 3. So I feel like I've blown your minds with that. So with that. We are at the end of time, so here's what I want to do. We gotta first of all, again, thank you guys for watching. If you're at home watching, we appreciate you, especially our Wigs members. We love our Wigs. If you want to find out, that is our Patreon program. You want to find out more about it, go to WDWNT. Go to patreon.com/WDWNT. Also, don't forget, we've got some great programming coming up this week, including news tonight, tomorrow night. Nick will be there. Desi will be there. Ron's still going to be sitting by the fire, but that's fine. And then we'll have our last Park Center of 2022 coming up this Sunday. So please join us for that and give us a like for this one and subscribe. So now here it is. We talked about we watched Rogue One, then we sat through 12 episodes of Andor, and so now I need to know, starting with Nick. Real quick, there's a lot of Star Wars out there, buddy. For this one, would you recommend this one?
Oh, without a doubt. That's easy. So I'd recommend this to, like I said earlier in the show, anybody who is interested in a good drama. I mean, I wish we had time to get more into the prison break. We honestly, for whatever reason, didn't talk a lot about the prison, which was a bulk of this episode, of this series. The prison was phenomenal. The design of the prison, the concept of how that prison worked, and the scheme to get out of the prison, and the prison break was just wow. that was such a great moment. So I think to anybody, this is a great drama about a prison break, about an oppressed citizenship in a city that, like I said, really was reminiscent about a lot of things that happened in real history. And to a Star Wars fan, I think if you don't need the flashiness of a lot of Force users and lightsabers, and you could appreciate a deep dive into how real and oppressive this empire was, like on a real level, like on the space Jedi and spaceships level, like it was a fun space battle. But in the everyday workings of this empire, it was an oppressive regime that we see in everyday life in the real world. So it was great in that respect. It was a great character study because there are amazing character arcs and characters in it. So to anybody, this is a great show. Yeah, it was super entertaining. I'm in my second rewatch. I'm about halfway through. Haven't finished yet, but I'm really excited about it. What's not to like?
Okay. Ron Dana.
Yeah, I would even suggest this to people who kind of dismiss Star Wars as kid stuff or space fantasy, because this wasn't that. This was more real sci-fi, like that is trying to make that statement like good sci-fi does. Like real, like classically sci-fi has always been, back to the metaphor of like what our lives can be or what our lives are, and this really goes to, there are real world consequences to these big bads, and they hurt the regular people, and the regular people need to do something and not just wait for these knights to come and save them. And I think it's a good series. I mean, oddly, I have not been able to get Laura to watch it at all. And I think she would go for it once she gets in, but she's just like, I'm watching this. I don't feel like Star Wars now, blah, blah, blah. But I will get, like, I've been fighting with my own wife to get her to watch it, and I know she'll love it when she gets to it, but she just hasn't yet.
Very cool. And Desi?
It's kind of funny because I was trying to get my husband into it and he wasn't as interested. And for some reason, because this came out like around the same time as She-Hulk, he was way more into She-Hulk, which I feel like is aimed at my demographic. And I was way more into Andor, which I feel like is aimed at his demographic. But yeah, I don't think there's a Star Wars that I wouldn't recommend other than The Rise of Skywalker. But I thought this was great. I loved it. I loved seeing like the real aspects within the universe, like everyday kind of stuff. What is going on behind the scenes. Like not everybody is going to be Luke Skywalker, but there's a lot that has to happen behind the scenes to be able to get Luke to that point. And I like being like world building and seeing more of that, seeing, this isn't just Luke's story. It's a story about like, a whole universe, a whole galaxy, and what Palpatine has done to them and the machine of the Empire behind just Palpatine himself. So I thought it was really interesting. Highly recommend to everybody, even if you're not a Star Wars person.
Okay. Cliffhanger. I'm going to go ahead and say I would recommend it too. Just to echo what some of the people have been saying here tonight, it does feel like Star Wars, but it's not in your face Star Wars. And I also feel like since it's a prequel to Rogue One, you don't have to have seen Rogue One or really any other Star Wars. It's a really good gateway Star Wars series actually to watch because you don't have to have any pre-existing knowledge of anything else that happened in Star Wars really to understand this show and to like it. And the fact that it is several different arcs rolled into one season, it does feel like it moves very fast once it gets started. That's the problem that I had, is the first episode and the first maybe one or two were so slow, but it does build the world and it does pay off. And I had the same problem with my family and my wife. It was just like that I couldn't get them motivated into this. Obi-Wan, they were on it from the beginning. I just couldn't get anybody to watch it with me, and I completely blamed them that it took me so long to get to watch this finally. So one of the questions in chat, I guess, Desi, you've already answered, was what was your favorite part of a Star Wars film? So thanks for addressing that in chat. Thank you guys for chatting with us. We do watch the chat when you guys are in there. Thank you, Adventures with Alicia and Kate and Jarrett and Steven and Arch and AB and Rob and everybody who was with us tonight live. We appreciate you. Thank you for watching. And next week, Patrick and I are cobbling something together for y'all to watch next week, and then we'll have a little bit of a break, and we'll be back in January with lots more Deep in the Plus. So thank you for all the people who are with us and watch, and thank you guys here for being like the Star Wars team. I guess we've got to do some more Star Wars very soon. There's a lot of it out there, so thank you guys for doing that. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Have a great night. Have a great week.
Rising Moons.